Thank you for those that are joining. Give everybody a couple minutes to get in. Hey, Mike, Sarah, thank you for showing up. All right, I'll just jump into it now that we've got a few people going. I have a fan going in the background, so if that interferes with the mic, but it has not been doing so in the past. So in the announcement I did today, I asked the question, are you Jack from the Titanic or are you Jack from accounting? Here's the kicker. It's the same guy. So what kind of impact is a man having on a woman? Is he Jack from the Titanic, the guy that wins her over to such a degree, not really wins her over, but she falls for him to such a degree that it's a permanent, huge impact on the woman? Or Jack from accounting, same guy, but meets under different circumstances and thus has less of an impact. So which guy do you want to be? Huge impact, she's thinking about you the rest of her life, or good enough, right? So why does it matter? Hey, Dr. Love, so why does it matter? We'll get into the details of why it matters, but here's the thing that matters to men, and the reason why this is a common topic, but the reason I decided to get back into it tonight is I made a couple posts this week, a couple memes. I've got a lot of questions coming back on it. So here's the thing. It's entirely situational, and I'm going to tell some stories about myself where I have been the guy. I've been Jack on the Titanic, and I've also been Jack from accounting. So why can I be Jack from the Titanic for one woman and then I'm not for somebody else, right? And the point is it's always situational. So as a man, you have to have your act together. You have to be somebody the woman wants, all these different things, of course. Here's the kicker, though. It is situational. So in my situation where I have been, it's not even so much an alpha widow thing, but did she fall for me? So a story I've told before in some of these posts was I was a young Marine, Southern California, bartending, all these things. A roommate, a barracks mate of mine, another Marine, he brings his girlfriend and like 3 of her friends out from the Midwest. They've never been to California before. 2 of them have never even been out of their home state. So I'm early 20s, they're mid 20s, a little bit older, and this is a big, exciting trip for them. So short version, I'll get right to the chase, is me and one of this girlfriend's friends had a little bit of a 2-week fling, okay? Again, our first time to California. I'm this buff, muscled up Marine, and we take them to the beach. They've never been to the beach in California. We're going out partying. We go to Mexico. I get in a fight in Mexico and actually get thrown in jail. She was horrified and very mad, but we'll get more to that in a minute. It was a very exciting time for her. And it was a very exciting time for her because she'd never been. In the whole thing, it was... Sorry, I had to edit something there. So it was a very exciting time for her, right? But why would she be an alpha widow, or why would she fall for me? Because of the situation. Being away from home, California for the first time, in her 20s, exciting. It was sex on the beach. The fight in Mexico horrified her. She was very mad, but it did add to a sense of danger and excitement for her, correct? And so she gets mad at me. She goes back to Illinois or Michigan or whatever it was, and she wanted a long-distance relationship. I'm a kid. I don't even know what I'm doing. So looking back on it, I guess I feel bad about it now, but I didn't know at the time. A year later, she's calling me 3 weeks before her wedding just to tell me she's getting married. Now, if I need to explain why this woman shouldn't be calling, not even an ex-boyfriend, just a guy she had a fling with 3 weeks before her wedding, that's a problem, right? I'm still in her head. So that was Jack from the Titanic. And we've all had, in the Marines, were you ever stationed in Chokan? No, never heard of it. This time I was in El Toro. This is 1991, 92. To the point, we've all been in this situation where we're Jack from accounting. We meet a woman under normal circumstances, and we're good enough, we're fun. We're the same guy that the other girl fell for, so why didn't this girl fall for me? And why is it important? We'll get into why it's important. But to the extent of what's the difference, and it's situational. So in the handful of times that women have really, really fallen for me, there's always some kind of something to it. And I've got some other things I'll point out, but there's always been some kind of situational thing to it. And as opposed to what happens, like when I was a bartender, I was the cool, muscled up bartender, and I would meet a girl, attractive woman. We would date for 3 or 4 weeks, and then 5, 6 weeks in, it goes boom. Why? Well, especially through this account, I've had the opportunity to talk to, either through DM or even a couple of phone calls, I've had the opportunity to talk to maybe 24 women. All were telling me their alpha widow stories after I'd posted on it, and they were asking me, am I an alpha widow? Why does this happen? What do I do now? Et cetera, et cetera. And here's here's several things, but the number one thing that every single one of them said was, when I asked them what was so special about this guy. Now, I'm a guy, so I'm thinking she's going to talk about great sex or something. And if you dig into it, the sex was always great. But that's not what they led off with. What they always led off with was he was fun. I promise you, every single woman that was an alpha widow or had some story to tell about really falling for a guy, the number one thing they talk about is he was fun. And then you dig into it for a little bit, and all of these things, like my story from California, they were always short-term flings. It may have been a couple weeks, it may have been a couple months, but it was always short-term flings, meaning they never had a serious relationship. She never got to know this man under normal circumstances, normal day-to-day living. There's no arguments. Well, like I said, this woman got mad at me for getting in a fight, and I was bomb drunk. I was being an asshole. But she got mad at me for getting in a fight and get thrown in jail in Mexico. And my reaction was I didn't care because I know she's going to be gone another week and a half. So why do I care, right? That actually helped her or led to her being more infatuated with me because I'm the bad boy. I don't care, right? And so even on something like that, there's no real arguments because nobody cares. And so whether it's 2 weeks or 2 months or whatever, these women, they meet a guy, he's going to have some kind of status, and maybe actual status. Maybe he's got whatever going on in his life that he's somebody, okay? Or maybe it's just, in my story about California, to her, she's away from home for the first time. Southern California, woo, party, all these big things. And I'm a 205-pound lean cut Marine, and we're just going at it, having fun, sex on the beach, fights in Mexico. It was just one big whirlwind of a party for her. And that stuck in her head to where she's calling me 3 weeks before she got married, right? It was fun. She never got to know me. All we did was have fun. The closest we came to an argument, I didn't care, so it really wasn't an argument. And every single woman I've talked to about, like, why the alpha widow, how'd you fall for him so hard? Fun, fun, fun. All she knows is fun. It was short term. She never knew the man under normal life circumstances. And so in her brain, he's frozen in time forever. Okay, so Jack from the Titanic. I know it's a movie, but it resonated for a reason, right? So when she's... Sorry, I'm reading some of the comments. So when she's at the end of the movie, who's she thinking of, right? She's not thinking of Jack from the Titanic at 50 years old or 35 or 70 or whatever. She's thinking about 2 or 3 days. I never actually saw the movie. I just know the highlights. But she's thinking about Jack from that 2 or 3 day period of time and the whirlwind romance, just like this girl I knew from California, right? So fun, short term, never actually knew the guy. And is good sex involved? Yes. But this is where it comes into Jack from accounting. If she met the same exact guy, Jack from accounting, under different circumstances, meet him at work. That's why I use accounting. just met him at work. The sex registers in her mind as something different. It's got to be decent, let's be honest, right? It can't be awful and then great. But that situational, the conditions are going to set in her mindset of whether or not it's mind-blowing because of the situation, sex on the beach, or did you guys hook up on a second date that you met on Tinder or Jack from Accounting, right? This makes a huge impact to women, and I know some women argue about that, but think about why there's love stories for women and there's not love stories for men. So men are going to watch adult movies, interchangeable body parts. That's how men are. It's just about the act. Women, now this is a few years ago I read this. The data may have changed since then, but it was a while back that I read into Psychology Today, by the way, if you're interested. It's a neat subject. Look up romance novels and the psychology behind romance novels. But as of 6, 7, 8 years ago, romance novels actually brought in more revenue than online porn, adult movies, as I say, because I don't want to trigger keywords here. So how is that possible? Because every woman I've ever talked to about romance novels, I've not once ever met a woman that admitted to reading romance novels. That's a side note, but again, it brings in more revenue than adult movies online, okay? To the point, even in the most sexually graphic romance novels, and I've read into them, I've researched this a little bit, the bestsellers are very, very, they're as graphic as any intellectually graphic, imaginary graphic, or any video out there, okay? Even in those sexually graphic novels, the woman still needs the plot. She needs the guy to be a millionaire or a cop or a vampire. She needs something to go with that. It's in their mind. So when have I been Jack from and we've all done it, but when I've been Jack from the Titanic, I mentioned the bartending thing before, I would meet attractive women as a young 20-something-year-old bartender, and when they met me, I was the cool, muscled-up dude. Great. We would date 3 or 4 weeks, and in that 3 or 4 weeks, that's kind of the fling period, right? The novelty is there. And oftentimes was the case, 5, 6, 7 weeks in, it just fell flat. So if I can, and I'm not trying to be crude, I'm just trying to be realistic, if I can give her some of the best sex she's ever had in her life, week 2 or 3, and then week 6 or 7, it just falls flat. I didn't do anything different. I'm not changed. What's going on? It's in her head, right? So was I making an alpha widow of this woman? No, because we got to know each other and we didn't really have that much chemistry, and the novelty wears off, the excitement's gone, and move on to the next guy, I guess, right? So for men, this is why we're talking about this, start to recognize, and we're going to get into genuine desire and genuine interest. In a relationship and love a girl, found out she's had a promiscuous past a year in. Yeah, we'll get into some of that. But why is this important is if a man finds himself in a relationship and you can't always calculate out how to be Jack on the Titanic. You met her on Tinder. You met her at work. You met her someplace. You can't always engineer how to make something exciting. So keep in mind what I said earlier. Every single woman that was an alpha widow that I've talked to, they all said the same thing. Number one, he's fun. Be fun. I'm not put a clown hat on and always have a big party, but you have to have the mindset of really having fun. Take her hiking. Take her do something. Okay, here's an example. I should have looked at the data up, but there's some pretty well-known research if you look into it that this is probably 10 or 12 years ago, but they did some studies on how men and women both react under situations of adrenaline and then when everything's totally peaceful. Short version of the study was they're in a national park and there's a trail, a hiking trail, and there's a kind of a rope suspension bridge, right? Wood planks, and it's over this big gorge. It's 100 feet down, and people had to walk across this. And it went for men and women both, but it was a bigger impact on women, so I'll focus on that. They had attractive, handsome men doing some kind of a survey. They were on the bridge, but right at the end of it. So these people just walked across this 100-foot deep gorge, a suspension bridge. They have to hold onto the ropes. Their adrenaline is up. So the women, college-age women, they get to the end of this bridge, and the guy taking the survey, he always made sure he's very handsome. the guy taking this survey, and it was about whatever, it was a faked up survey, but at the very end of it, the guy would say, "Can I get your phone number in case we have any more questions to follow up on?" Now, they repeated this in a parking lot outside the mall somewhere, okay? And I don't remember the exact numbers, but the amount of phone numbers that the guy would get on that bridge versus the mall parking lot, it was a huge difference. And what the researchers concluded was when a woman's adrenaline is up and there's that kind of edgy feel, right? And he's a handsome guy, it made the man more appealing. So take that to the situational example, like I was saying. My example, I meet this girl, she's never been to California, we're partying, Jack on the Titanic, whatever. If you can create something situational so you're not just doing some boring walk in the park, it can make a big difference. Even more importantly for the men is be somebody that they want to know, right? It's like, don't be Jack from the county. Don't take her out for a first date coffee. First date coffee is fine in and of itself, but don't meet her for coffee and talk about your work day and how you hate your boss, right? It doesn't have to be high dollar, but do something a little more fun. And so to the point of why doesn't it always work out? Well, there's not natural chemistry and everything's not always going to work out, but that's why I use the other example of Jack from accounting. That's when I would meet the new girl when I was a bartender, and it was all fun and games for 4 or 5 weeks, and if there's no real chemistry there, then what happens? To the point, if I can do something for her in week 2 and not in week 6, then we know that's in her head. All right, so why is all this important? Excuse me. Because these things matter, because, and I'm not getting on any kind of moral high horse. I'm sitting there talking about my own flings and being a wild, young, whatever, running up the body count. I'm guilty of that too. To the point, though, you just have to take reality for what reality is. And we live in a hyper-sexualized society. And the idea that you're going to meet a woman much past 19 or 20 that doesn't have at least a double-digit body count, it is what it is, okay? So you have to be aware of the fact that most women you meet have experience, and you're going to be compared to that experience. And so that's not to instill some sort of insecurity in you or to be paranoid. You just need to be aware of it. To the point, if she has whatever in her past, I don't care. If I meet her now and she is a good girlfriend to me now, and the behavior, I'm not saying the past doesn't matter. I'm saying you're not always going to know her past. So judge her as a girlfriend on what you see now. Can you trust her? Is she easy to get along with? Very important. And then understand if she treats you like Jack from accounting, if you're 5-6 weeks in, and again, not trying to be crude, but you're a month in and she drives to your touch, something's changed up here. And that's important because of this hypersexualized society, all the promiscuity, whether she's 29 or 49, a lot of women, and I'm not blaming women, it's part of what's going on in society, they run through these series of dates over however many years, and they get to the point and they're tired, they're emotionally exhausted, they're like, I want off this train, this isn't working for me, and their priorities change, and now it's not the hot guy, now it is the secure guy. And again, it's so much is going on in her head. It could be the same guy. If she'd met that guy 2 years earlier when she wasn't necessarily looking to settle down, he could have been Jack from the Titanic. She meets the same damn guy 2 years later, and she puts him in that mental box. He seems like a pretty stable guy. I met him at work. He's an accountant, right? So now what? He's the same damn guy, but it's in her head. And as a man, and this isn't to be mean to women or anything, but we all have to take care of ourselves. If you as a man allow yourself to be in a situation where you are Jack from accounting, I promise you she's still thinking of Jack from the Titanic. That's the whole point. That's the whole deal. Why do women prefer a romance novel or a romantic movie or some such thing? Why are Hallmark movies popular? I know everybody hates them, but man, they're awfully popular. Somebody's lying about that. Somebody likes them. Okay? Why are stories important to the women? because they need this buildup in their head. It does make a difference if he's a cop or a plumber. It does make a difference if he's from the Titanic or an accountant. It does matter. And so you as a man, you find yourself in these situations, and once the novelty wears off, and the novelty is going to wear off on any relationship, of course it is. That's why the second and the third month are the most important. If you're 2-3 months in and the sex takes a big deep dive, I mean, it's going to taper off a little bit. You're getting to know each other. Then again, the novelty's worn off. But if it takes a deep dive, like she's literally dries to your touch in the second month, that's all in her head. Whatever excitement you had at the beginning, that was pure novelty. And so when there's a big drop from month 2 to month 3 or whatever it is, that means she operates more on novelty than she does on actual feelings or emotions, right? So this is important because this hypersexualized society I'm talking about, and again, I'm not faulting women for this. Side note that we'll talk about some other live, women are the most negatively impacted by the so-called sexual revolution. I definitely think women are the biggest losers in a promiscuous society. I love Hallmark stories, always have a happy ending. You know what, Melissa, though? I get it. They're neat movies. My ex-wife used to watch them. I didn't ever really watch them with her, but I'd walk through the living room. And here's the thing I always noticed. The standard plot was, and this will fit to what I'm talking about, the standard plot was that the girl was visiting some family in some snowy Vermont town at Christmas, and she's got some jerk boyfriend. He's a stockbroker, let's say, in New York City, and he's so busy with work and making money, he can't take time off to go see her family. And we never really see why he's a jerk other than he's still working, providing for his soon-to-be wife, correct? And then she meets the town lumberjack, and they kind of make eyes at each other, and basically she's developing a relationship with the town lumberjack while she's still technically engaged. And that really bugs the shit out of me, to be honest. That everybody loves those shows, and they're so often they're just... Anyway, to the point, though, the novelty wore off. She's not impressed by the Hallmark movie. The novelty wears off. She's accustomed to the stockbroker boyfriend. He's a jerk because he doesn't want to come do cutesy things with me in the snow. And the lumberjack's here, right? So the lumberjack is the Titanic guy. The fiance is Jack from accounting. And all this is going on inside of her head. He can stand to live or live in the purpose and respect for his lady. Yeah. So, sorry, I'm trying to keep up with some of the comments here. Appreciate that, me. Ooh, damn. So, to the point, is this something we can always control? We can control it by keeping in mind masculine frame. We can keep it under our control in that when I say be fun, don't treat her like your buddy. She's not your best buddy that you're going to go fishing with. If she wants to go fishing with you, great, but she still is not your buddy, okay? First, second date, whatever, don't start talking about your work. Talk about something else. She doesn't want to talk about philosophy. Some do, but rarely, okay? And I'm guilty of that, especially. The same reason I'm a guy that can put out content and grow my accounts the way I am. I have a lot of thoughts, and I'm guilty of being with a woman and thinking out loud because I have all these thoughts, and I have to catch myself and say, she doesn't care. Stop doing that. Talk about something that is more fun. People like that garbage because it's just... Yeah, I think so. But somebody said people like that garbage because it justifies their bad deeds or whatever. I don't totally disagree with that, but it does highlight the point that women have a narrative going on inside of their head that needs to be fulfilled. And there's a lot of research on it. I know Jordan Peterson talks about it. God-Sod featured it pretty heavily in his book. Is it God-Sod that wrote A Billion Wicked Thoughts? Anyway, they get into all that. When women search out, whether it's porn or the romance novels or whatever, who are the characters? Okay? And again, not trying to be crude, but this is the perfect example. Even when it's just about the sexual gratification of the moment, something saucy that they want to read or watch. They want a vampire, they want a billionaire, they want a fireman, whatever that is. What do men do? Interchangeable body parts. That's all it is. They don't care. Because porn in the 80s, it wasn't very common because you had to have a VHS and a parent, somebody's parent. As a teenager in their 80s, there was always like at least one kid whose parents had like 2 VHS tapes stashed away in the closet, and we could every once in a while get a hold of some of that. I'm glad it wasn't more easily accessible, by the way. But the movies back then had plots. And I'm sure if you took those tapes, those VHS tapes, and took them and stretched them out, you could see where it was all worn out during the sex scenes and pretty unmolested where the plot was building up, because nobody cares. The guys were like on the fast forward, get to the sex, man. Don't care. And that's why this is a topic that needs to be discussed, at least for the guys in my following, because this comes up a lot, because we as men feel like, we're builders. We fix things. We say 2 + 2 = 4. I did this, so she should do X. I go to the gym. I know I look decent. I make good money. I treat her nice. Why is she cold? Well, because you're not fulfilling the Jack from the Titanic role in her life. And that's what it all comes down to. And so to what I was starting to get at a while ago is, because of a super hypersexualized, I know that's redundant, sorry, because of a hypersexualized society, and most women have had at least a phase. I know people say most, yeah, there's evidence on that. Look up promiscuity in college. 70% of women, there's some different data points out there, but it comes out to like 70% of women have at least one hookup before they get out of college. I know that doesn't really constitute a phase, but let's face it, it's more than just one hookup. To the point, not judging, I was one of the guys participating in that sort of thing. What I'm saying is, men, you are stacking up against other men by comparison. So if you are treated like Jack from accounting, if you are treated with, and this is the last part I want, not the last part, but the part 2 that I want to get to is genuine interest. And that's what prompted me to want to do this live on this topic. Was I've talked a couple times this week already about genuine desire creates genuine interest. Excuse me. So do you want to be married or long-term relationship with a woman 5, 10, 15 years in, knowing, Jack from the Titanic, knowing that she's still thinking about the guy from the Titanic, right? The guy that swept her off her feet 5 years ago before you met her, right? How do you know this? Well, she's told you enough about her past. There's at least that one guy, in all that goes with whatever the story is, that will come out, and that guy's back there. But then you come along, the sex is dry after 2 months. She doesn't have a real keen interest in the small things that you do. And I made I use stamp collecting as an example. I don't know how really funny that is, maybe a little silly. But a woman that has genuine desire for a man will also develop a very genuine, keen interest in the things that he does. All right. So I've made videos in the past comparing beer can collections and stamp, whatever, something oddball. Okay. And the point is it doesn't interest her, but he interests her. Right. So if he's into whatever sport, he's into basketball. She's never watched a full game of basketball in her life, but he's a big Suns fan. I used to live in Phoenix. So he's a big Suns fan. By the end of the basketball season, she's going to know at least the starting lineup of the Phoenix Suns, right? If she does not have genuine desire, that level of interest will be nearly impossible to fake. Okay, so the example I used in the post today is if she can respect the man. Yeah, I don't disagree with that, Greg, about the respect, but that's kind of next level stuff. But you're right. If she doesn't, the example I used in the post today was he is a stamp collector. I know it's a silly whatever, but it helps highlight the point that something as obscure as stamp collecting will be interesting to that woman if she has genuine desire for that man. So let's say he's in a big stamp collecting community on Facebook, and everybody knows he has these great stamps, and he gets this big find, and he's excited about it, and he makes a Facebook post about this new rare stamp that he had. What she's going to do when she opens her phone, because she knows he's excited for it, She's going to open her phone. She's not going to surf Facebook and wait for his post to pop up. She's going to go right to his account. She's excited because he's excited. She's curious to see how that post is going because she's interested in him. Now, secondarily, outside of that Facebook group, he's going to post it to 3 or 4 other platforms. She's not going to say, well, I already saw that on one platform. I don't need to go look at it on the other one. She's going to go look at each platform. Why? Because she's interested in him. Does it make sense? And I kind of put genuine interest, part 2. We'll get to part 3. So the point is because of the hypersexualized society, because so many women basically, and again, I'm not being moralistic on the promiscuity, but it does have a negative effect over time. And so what happens is Jack from the Titanic, the one that got away, he's somewhere in the middle of that body count, and that was 5 years ago. And she's still searching to fill that out, right? Whether she's 29 or 49, she hits a certain age and she thinks, I better settle down. And she's going to find the best man possible. But with that changing priorities, like I was saying earlier, she can take a guy that may have been a Jack from the Titanic for her years earlier. Now that her priorities have changed, she meets basically the same guy, and now he's a safe guy. She puts him in a box. He is safe and secure. He's Jack from accounting now. And she's going to live the rest of her life, hopefully in her mind, with a guy that she does not have genuine burning desire for. And that's a problem. That turns platonic. That turns very dry. It's not great, right? So genuine desire creates genuine interest. Why? So I'm trying to keep up some of the comments. No, jealousy is a sign of insecurity usually. Incorrect. Jealousy is not a sign. I mean, it can get out of hand, but jealousy is not a sign of insecurity. It's perfectly natural. Look up jealousy, evolutionary psychology. It makes total sense. Men that were not jealous at all, or women that were not jealous at all, they as a group got cheated on, and their genes were not passed on down the line. So, yeah, jealousy up to a point is perfectly natural and healthy, because if I'm with a girlfriend at a bar or something, and there's some attractive women pawing at me and flirting with me, and my girlfriend doesn't care, that tells me that she's perfectly okay with this interaction, which means she's probably interacting with other men like that. So, yeah, it's good for people to care. Back to my point. All of this matters for the woman because of hypergamy. And then this is another thing that's come up. See, I can read and talk at the same time. Hypergamy has come up a number of times in the last week because people keep wanting to act as if hypergamy is something that we can consciously or voluntarily adopt or do away with, like we're changing socks. That's not how it works. Human nature overall is what it is. Human nature is an instinctual part of who we are. And for hypergamy, it's part of a woman's biological drive. Side note, men are not hypergamous. That's a topic for another time. But because the woman has a biological need, again, just look up evolutionary psychology, because a woman has a biological need to at least perceive that she has got the best man possible, doesn't mean he is, but at least in her perception, she needs to feel that. So for whatever reason, she perceives you, Jack from accounting, as not being the best, but you're the best she can do. And she's 32 years old. The so-called biological clock is ticking, and Jack from the Titanic was 5 years ago, and he ain't coming back, right? So now what does she do? Her hypergamous need also involves security. So she latches onto the safe guy from accounting. But now what? She's not aroused by the safe guy from accounting. She chose him for security. And this is something I've talked about quite a bit. Once security is satisfied, you're not going to think about it. When you're hungry, when your belly's empty, you think about food. Once your belly is full of food, not only are you not hungry anymore, when you're full, the idea of more food is almost sickening. And that's another reason why a platonic relationship and what's supposed to be a romantic relationship is such a problem. Because if you're Jack from accounting and she has Jack from the Titanic in her past, she knows what desire really is. She knows what it feels like to feel her desire truly satiated. And if you're Jack from accounting, you ain't doing it. And so that satiation of security, she's not hungry for security anymore. She doesn't think you're going to leave. She's not worried about you. That is satiated. So now she's left with unfulfilled desire. So that feeling of security being satiated is actually going to turn to resentment. Subconsciously, at least, she will resent Jack from accounting. She literally will resent Jack from accounting for not being Jack from the Titanic. And she doesn't have to think all this through. This is what hypergamy does. Hypergamy is a drive to say, as a woman, I need the best man possible. And it may just all be perception, but she needs to have what she feels is the best man possible. So all of this keeps coming back to, why am I even doing this live, at least on this topic? I do lives every Tuesday at 7. But why this topic now? I don't know why. Perfect storm of maybe everybody had a bad weekend, but I literally had at least 7 men contact me early Monday morning. It wasn't all specifically on this, but all had something to do with this topic. And guys, they get into, this is going to be a new post pretty soon. They get into these relationships and they see the red flags and they tell themselves it'll be okay, it's different, whatever. Sorry, I'm reading. They ignore the red flags and they see them. I've done dozens and dozens of phone calls with men, and I promise you, every single time, I don't have to tell them anything that they didn't already know. All they needed was a third party detached from their personal situation. They talk and I point out, well, you saw that, right? And they go, yeah. I go, what do you think about that? Yeah, that's not good. I go, why are you still there? Yeah. And it's kind of like the hold my beer version of relationships. We know we shouldn't do that, but we go, oh, hold my beer, I think I can do this, and we charge in anyway, right? And the end result is you're 6 weeks into a new relationship, she dries to your touch, and you think, well, she's still nice to me mostly, I'll stick this out, see where it goes. No, hold up. If novelty falls off that fast, she's living up here, and once that novelty's gone, it's platonic. And so we don't want to be last resort. I talk about second choice sometimes, but there's no Ricky Bobby kind of thing, right? There's no second place. It's first choice, or she's settling for what she can get. I've ignored the red flags. Is that a weakness on my part? Yes, I've ignored the red flags. Is that a weakness on my part? Yeah, it is. No offense. We've all done it, but that's a weakness. And the kind of the running joke is, and I am going to make some shorter posts on this week, is we joke around and say, well, guys will do anything for sex. And well, we just want the sex. We want the girl. We want the coochie. That may be true for some guys, but honestly, if a guy's had more, depending on age, if a guy's had more than a handful or 2 handfuls of women in his life, he's not that desperate for sex. He's not. If you've gotten X amount of in the past, that man knows he can get more in the future. Okay. And again, some men can't, so I'm trying to generalize here a little bit. But it's not so much about men just being desperate for any kind of sex. It is, I think, it's my opinion, I can't prove this, men think they can fix things. I know there's a lot of cliches out there about women trying to fix men, but we come at it a little differently. But we think other people, that's my hold my beer, I can do this kind of mentality. Men will go out with women they would tell their friends not to go out with. Men will violate, in relationships and dating, men will violate rules that they would tell their own son, don't do that, because they think they can do it. Hey, don't ride a motorcycle without a helmet. But they'll ride a motorcycle without a helmet because, that's good for everybody else, but I can do this. So is it a weakness? Yeah, it's a weakness to ignore the red flags. It is. But we all have it, and you got to see it and fix it. But is the hypergamy, can you ice skate? A little bit, actually. I have some CCMs in the closet. Am I missing any really good comments or questions? I'm not actually trying to talk the whole time, believe it or not. If it's genuine desire, if she gets jealous easily. Oh, that's what Greg was responding to, is genuine desire if she gets jealous easily. That's kind of open-ended, Jake. I guess it depends on what you think easy is. A little bit of jealousy is healthy. A lot of jealousy, I can't prove this, but I think in my experience, women that get jealous really easily, and they kind of obsess over it. I think, in my experience, they've been fairly promiscuous in their past, and because they've been promiscuous, they expect everybody else to be. A thief. I can't remember the saying now. Thieves don't. There's something about thieves not trusting other people because they think everybody's a thief, right? So, but that's pretty subjective. So you'd have to kind of consider case by case basis. Ooh. But so, kind of bottom line takeaways. You can be, and I started to say at the very beginning, this isn't just about alpha widows, because that's a smaller segment. But is it important that a woman falls for a man? Absolutely. Why? Because of hypergamy. It's not, there's no woman alive that just picks a man, he's good enough, he's okay, and then doesn't have thoughts about what could have been, even if it's not a specific man that she fell for years earlier. If a woman picks a man that she deems, correctly or incorrectly, as good enough, there's always part of her biological drive, that hypergamous need, that is always going to question, is this man really the best that I could do? So the example I use so often is a dream car. The car salesman does not have to go to work to sell anybody their dream car. It sells itself, okay? So, and this has become a mantra on my account, for men, never, ever, ever win a woman over. Because the dream car, if a person shows up on the car lot, yes, high-end hockey skates are pretty expensive. I don't have high-end hockey skates. If a person shows up, wait a minute, I'm trying to keep up. Do you think Jack from the Titanic is feasible for most men? Yes, I do. Angel, remind me of that if I don't get back to it in another minute or two, because that's a good question. If a person shows up on the car lot and the car salesman has to really go to work to convince them to buy the car, that ain't their dream car. Is there a dream car out there? Yes, there is. You pick whatever car you want for an example, but, I'm trying to sell you a 2012 Silverado and you want a Ferrari. If I had a Ferrari and you could afford it, boom, no work required, right? So that's the hypergamous need. So if a man wins a woman over, he's the car salesman convincing her, you'll like this car. I know it's not what you really want, which is why he has to go to work to sell it. He convinces her to buy it. Now what happens the rest of the time she's driving that car? She's driving around and thinking, I wish I had that other car. And every once in a while, she sees somebody else driving the car that she really wanted. And as a man, women wouldn't like it either if the tables were turned. But as a man, you don't want to be in that relationship knowing in the back of her mind, you're not the dream car. You're not what she really wanted. And I've had some people push back and say, well, that's just pride or ego. No, it's human nature. Because I could set up a different scenario and turn it around where, the woman wasn't the first choice. And nobody's going to be comfortable. Nobody's going to be comfortable with that. That's obvious. It shouldn't even need explained, really. So do you think Jack from the Titanic is feasible for most men? I do. I really do. So can everybody be 6 foot tall, muscles, and a great beard? No, they can't. But a guy that's 5'6" can be on his game in the gym for other reasons besides women, but right, he could be on his game, making the most of his career, his finances, the most of his physique, and that 5'6" guy can go find a 5'3" woman. And you go, well, he's not very handsome. He has to adjust his choices to where he is. And maybe there's a small percentage where just never going to work. Maybe, I don't know, I'm trying to generalize. Most men, okay? Most men, if they will make the most of themselves, they can find a woman, and there's research on that. Hypergamy, she's always going to mate up, right? And the man's going to be happier when he's dating down just a little bit. Not a lot, but just a little bit. So if that 5'6" guy with average handsomeness goes to the gym, makes his money, he is objectively masculine, doing everything he should be doing as a man, well, he just has to find a woman that matches who he is, right? So can we all be Jason Momoa? No. But And all women can't be. Who's the one that's so popular right now? Margot Robbie. Y'all can't be Margot Robbie either, right? So I know a lot of you think you are, but you're not. Excuse me. The problem has arisen where they say a 5 woman has a hookup with a 10 man and they think she's a 10. The problem has arisen where a woman that's a 5, I'm paraphrasing, has a hookup with a 10. And this is true, and it's a real problem, and it's measured too, and it's all the research is out there. If he's dating his league, most men want women who look better. All right, Angel and Greg, I can tie you guys' comments together. Angel, okay, that makes sense if he's dating in his league, but most men want women who look better. Incorrect. So you look at we all want something as best as we can get, but the best short version answer for that is if you look at the dating app data, I know, that's out there, women swipe on 4% of men swipe on 66% of women. So it is women who are much pickier on looks. Are men visual? Yes, we are. We're very visual. We'll notice everything. But that doesn't mean we're picky, as the 66% ratio clearly shows. We like women. We like kind of chubby women. We like skinny women. We like tall women. We like short women. We like women. Think of porn. We just like body parts. We want the body parts. And men all day long will take a chubby, mediocre woman all day long if relative to his own sexual market value. But men will date down all day long, no problem whatsoever. To the point of what Greg was saying, and again, there's research on this, the problem has arisen where a 5 hooks up with a 10, a 5 woman hooks up with a 10 guy. Now she thinks she's a 10. This is true. And this is mainly the result of social media in general and dating apps in particular. Men obviously are going to sleep around if they can at a certain point in their life anyway. And plenty of guys, just for the hookup, will swipe right, take a girl out 1 or 2 dates, if that, and be done. And that woman, maybe it's a 3-week fling, right? And that woman spends the rest of her days thinking, I had that hot guy, I can get me another hot guy. And I've talked to a number of these women online as well through my account. And women come and ask me, why this? There was a woman, this is a year ago, she kept getting cheated on. It's too many details. She kept getting cheated on, and none of her relationships went past 3 or 4 weeks. And then she was asking me, why does this happen? And the more details I got, she was just on the dating apps, and she was kind of chubby. And I'm not trying to be mean to chubby people. Go to the gym, eat right. I'm just saying. She was a 5 or a 6 at best. And she, by her own account, was going out with some pretty hot guys, but they would never stick around. And she was just dead ass convinced that she was hot. And I don't know her, but I had enough decency not to tell her, hey, you're not that hot. But I did tell her, maybe you need to back up and, find some guys that will commit, which is kind of a roundabout way of saying maybe you need to lower your physical standards a little bit. But to Greg's point, yeah, it's actually measurable. You can find research on it. Because of the influence of dating apps, there's quite a number of women, and they will sleep 30, 40 men in the course of a few years, and they're all technically out of her league. And then, I'm not trying to be cute or mean, that's a large percentage of the women on TikTok and wherever that are saying we're the good men out. They're out there that you just don't think they're in your league, and they actually are. Angel, did that make sense to you? That most men want women who look better than themselves. No, they're not actually that comfortable with that. And maybe I look up Dataclysm. That's a pretty good source for a lot of that. So, whoop. It's like taking the order versus having to sell it. Yeah. What is your commentary on interracial relationships? Oh, man, no big deal there. It's 2023. I've dated quite a number of black girls in my life. I was dating black girls in high school in the 80s. That was pretty cutting edge. I was woke before anybody knew what woke meant. Cool. The man knows very quickly if he sees a woman as a smash and dash or a long-term prospect. If you guys, I forget the guy's name now. He didn't invent this. Somebody was talking about this the other day, to Greg's comment about whether guys can tell pretty quick if they think it's long-term or not. And I've talked about it, and I've heard 3 or 4 other people talk about it, but this guy, I can't think of it now. He does it where he draws it out on notebook paper. Somebody will know who that is. But he's talking about there's 3 groups, and here's a big difference. A woman will, not all women, but many women will hook up with a man. Let me back up. Women do not lower their physical standards for sex. He has to be hot. Even if she knows this is probably a hookup, but he's pretty hot, I'm going to go for this. Men will absolutely, in fact, more times than not on a hookup, the man is lowering his physical standards because he just wants the sex. Okay? So here's a big difference, though. Outside of that difference, here's another thing. Once a man is sleeping with a woman and he perceives her as just a hookup, somebody to sleep around with, she will never, ever be a long-term option for him. You can't, a man will not take a woman out of this group, the hookup group, and put her in the girlfriend group. If and sex on the first date happens, and then they do turn into long-term relationships, so that's not a good marker of it. But however he determines that, once she's in the hookup box, she will never meet mom and dad. She'll never be long-term. The woman, however, she can get into a hookup with a guy because she didn't lower physical standards. She'd be proud to be seen on his arm, right? And she's not holding that hookup kind of thing against him. She would love for him to wake up in the morning and be a different man. It's a Hallmark movie. He's changed. And that's actually, if you look, I highly recommend, go to Psychology Today, look up romance novels. You'll find the articles I'm talking about. The very standard template of the romance novel for 50 years is the woman takes the cad, the guy that's banging everybody in town, and they even use the term magic hoo-hoo. Female psychologists came up with that term, magic hoo-hoo. Her fantasy is she gets the guy that's banging all the other women in town, but she has the magic hoo-hoo, and she domesticates him. She is so special, boom. And I've theorized before, just on my own content, that much of what women are fantasizing about in a hookup is that the woman, are the center of his attention. That he could have anybody, but he chose her. And that's the wake-up call for women is, no, you're an interchangeable body part. Quit hooking up. Promiscuity hurts you. I'm not being moralistic. I'm just saying there's damages going on there. Angel, you said he'll take a chubby woman, but if he could get a better woman, he'd be gone. He'll take a chubby woman if that's all that's available. Would he, now we're getting into individuals here, would a man always necessarily leave the chubby woman for a better looking woman? Depends if it's a relationship or whatever, but to the original point, men are not always looking for better. They're not. Men are looking for as good looking as they can get, and once they're dating, if she will be loyal, I'm not exaggerating this, if she will be, number one, loyal, and number two, easy to get along with. Easy to get along with. I can't impress on how important that is. Easy to get along with. Easy to get along with. It doesn't make her a doormat. It doesn't mean she absolutely does everything he says, but man, you got to be easy to get along with. She can be chubby, not cold sexually, easy to get along with, loyal, all day long. All day. 95% of men, all day long. I'm telling you. Be easy to get along with. How can a guy who's not considered an alpha male still be masculine, especially with a woman? Chris, it's hard to see these little icons. Are you the magician? I forget everybody's handles. How can a guy who's not considered an alpha male still be masculine, especially with a woman? One of the main, I haven't talked about in a few weeks, one of the main things I get on quite a bit is Chris Madrosian. He's a good magician. Check him out, guys. He's pretty neat. One of the things I get on a lot is objective masculinity. And I say, avoid people that talk about being a good man. Not that there's not a point of being a good man, but to be a good man is subjective. You know, different cultures, different religions. Not that there isn't a good man. There's a place for that. But be careful when, at least be wary of the person speaking when they throw out subjective terms. Well, a good man will do this. Maybe, maybe not. And a real man, I hate the term real man. I've heard masculine men who I like on here. I'm friends with some of them, and I don't know if they're really joking, but they go, "Real men don't wear sandals." Man, I wear sandals 99% of the time, and I'll kick most guys' ass. There's nothing that's silly, right? But an objective man, what is an objective masculinity? To be objectively masculine, you do need to be physically strong relative to who you are. Do you have to be the bench press record holder at the local gym? No. But you do need to be relatively physically strong. Think if you're walking with your wife or your girlfriend down the street, you need to be reasonably expected to defend you and her from two or three guys. Yeah, you need to be able to do that. Any man can do that. Any man can get to the gym and bench press well over his weight. At least his weight. You should be able to bench press your body weight at least 3 or 4 times. You should know how to throw a punch. And you should be physically tough. Let's face it. You need to be physically tough. That's objectively masculine. Secondarily, and probably just as important, stoic command of your emotions. Because a man that does not have control over his emotions is a mess. He's a danger to society. If you do not have a stoic command of emotion, it doesn't mean we don't cry. There's times to cry. It doesn't mean that you can't open up to your girlfriend or your wife in an appropriate manner. Fine. But you're going to have a stoic command of your emotions because you're physically strong. Because a lot of the people out there, they're talking about vulnerability and all this emotional openness. Your emotions are a spectrum. It's a spectrum. You can't be emotionally vulnerable or weak or open with just the cute and cuddly stuff. A man that is not in stoic command of his emotions, he's also going to have temper problems. He's also more likely to cheat. You know why? Because he's freaking neurotic and he feels insecure at the least little bitty thing. You're getting ready to start your period, you don't feel good, you told him no sex tonight, so he goes off in a huff and bangs a hooker. Why? Because he doesn't have stoic command of the emotions. You can't pick and choose the cute and cuddly emotions. So I'm getting to on the can a man that's excuse me. All I'm getting to, Chris, you don't have to be 6'5" and the star quarterback for the local college. Physically strong, stoic command of emotions. Be competitive. Don't be afraid to be competitive. Be assertive. I almost made a post last week. I blew up everybody's email at my work because somebody else, too much to explain. I'll maybe do it in a post later, but I'm the freaking hero of all my mechanics that work under me. I'm the hero because somebody else was being an asshole and everybody else was afraid to respond. I'm like, no, hold up, right? Be assertive. Stand your ground. So yeah, you don't have to be the so-called alpha. Sit down. It's a joke. Not joking. Stoicism is not strength. We got a troll. You deal with them, Scotty. Real men should care about. I think you meant his family. Real men should care about his family. Ironic, since I just said real man's not a really good phrase to use. But yeah, if a man has a family, of course he should care about his family. But then, to the point, that's a subjective measure that I agree with, but it is by definition subjective. That's me, Chris. Are there always signs of a promiscuous past? If she's agreeable, loyal, is past acceptable? This is something I've talked about quite a bit. I'm going to get off in a minute because we're coming up on the hour mark, but that's a good question. I've said this numerous times. Does a woman's past matter? Yes. Are you ever going to know all the gritty details of her past? No. The best you can do is just get to know her. If she is not trustworthy, it'll show. It'll just show. I've known women, too much detail to get into. I've known women that I've known them long enough. I absolutely know that they have a very low body count, and I wouldn't trust them because I know them. Okay? And if a woman has a really high body count, that gets into psychological stuff, and you can look up Sam Vaknin on YouTube or Instagram. There are a lot of psychological studies that are not politically correct to talk about anymore. They're actually getting harder to find the articles, but they're out there. So a woman that is addicted to attention, she's not addicted to sex, she's addicted to attention. So that could be a problem. But you're never going to know these numbers, so just get to know her. If a man gets to know a woman You can listen to her stories. She's not going to tell you all the dirt. Within 2 or 3 weeks, if there's something sketchy, if there's something disloyal or erratic or something to that, just pay attention to the stories. People, men too, people tell them themselves all the time. They can't help it. People just bleed information. AMC, I don't get along with blue. What? Hold on. I don't get along with blue collar guys. Don't feel man enough. Been working on it. Well, Sebastian, I've been blue collar and white collar. So, and I'm a bit of an intellectual, and I used to be a freelance illustrator. And I was in the Marine Corps. I'm a combat veteran. I used to box, jiu-jitsu. I've done all the tough guy stuff, right? And I'm also an illustrator. I know how to paint. I've published articles. I'm writing a book now. So I've lived walking on both sides of that line. And the best way to deal with the so-called blue collar, the guys that are too cool or too tough to read a book, be as physically tough as them. Simple as that. That's what I did. I mean, I wanted to be tough anyway when I was a little boy, so I did it. But I've had a lot of friends that I met at church and different places, and they just perceived me as the Marine, bald head, bearded guy. And then they find out that I actually read books on philosophy and I do stuff like this. And they're like, what? But too late. I'm 6 foot, 200 pounds, and I'll kick your ass if you look at me wrong. This man teaches you to bottle up your emotions. No, men do not bottle up their emotions. What men do is they control their emotions. Because I already lost who that person is. A cause 6. You don't want a man that has 900 nanograms per deciliter of testosterone to not be in control of his emotions. So when people say emotional control is, no, it's wrong. You can rewrite the source in the dictionary you want. You're buying into social constructionism that says men need to be more like women. And that's going to be my parting point here. Well, I don't know. There's 90 people. We'll keep going. All right, homework. Everybody look up what? 700 test level naturally. That is good. You can get higher. But that's very good. AM2C. Where'd that go? AM2C. Look up Dr. Anthony J on YouTube. He's an actual scientist. He has a book called Estrogeneration. Look him up. Look up Andrew Huberman, and you can get, unless you're already doing it, but you can get your testosterone up quite a bit just by getting plastic out of your life, get processed food out of your life, lift heavy, sleep right. There's a bunch of stuff, but look up Anthony J for sure. A fearful person is a dangerous person. That is correct. Thanks, Renaissance. That's cool. Wait a minute. And please, cause 6, please note that I'm treating you respectfully. So, and you're being respectful too, but I'm not slamming anybody. Are you using testosterone as an excuse that you're some caged animal? No. Now, cause, if you're really curious, thank you, Danny. If you're really curious, you can find the research on this. Oh, I need to find, you know what? You're my muse, cause. You're my muse. I'll find that link tonight because I've been meaning to do this. Because of all the gender transitioning that's been going on the last couple of years, there are actually websites and places to help women transitioning to be a man. Why do they need help in counseling transitioning from being a woman to a man? Because of testosterone. They can literally feel their emotions go away. I'll find that link and I'll post it. ACOS, go ahead and give me a follow. And I'll post on that in the next couple of days. Because I know I have that link saved somewhere. But what happens is, and again, it's not even research like theoretical stuff. Testosterone does not allow a man to feel the same range of emotions that a woman does. And you can get it. I'll look this link up too. You can get into the research and what they see, and it's different. It's like 2 different roadmaps. If you can look in the brain, an fMRI, and a guy that has a masculine level of testosterone versus a feminine level of testosterone, a man is literally incapable of feeling the full range of emotions that a woman feels. Simply incapable. We don't cry at the same movies because I have 1,300 nanograms per deciliter of testosterone. That's why I'm not going to cry. It doesn't even occur to me. Do I cry at times? I have. I had people that follow me now. I've had some family, some things that happened in my family, and I have cried recently. So if it's real, but even then, on stoic command of emotion, I can hold it back. I had to buy a suit. This is the most personal information I've ever given on social media. I had to buy a suit for a funeral a couple months ago, and it was devastating. I'm saying it, and I'm dealing with the guy I'm buying the suit from. He's talking about the alterations he's going to make, and I turned around and tears started welling up my eyes. And the guy called my name, and I just stopped. It wasn't even conscious. I just stopped. I turned around and I talked to him like normal, and then the business was done, and I walked out the door and I cried. And none of that was even a conscious decision. That's what testosterone does. That's why men with it's going to differ from one man to another, but generally speaking, a guy that has less than 500 nanograms per deciliter, he's going to have more anxiety because testosterone also protects us from neuroticism. So a guy that's overweight, 400 nanograms per deciliter, way low below what it's supposed to be, he's going to be open to a fuller range of emotions. He's not designed for that. Men aren't designed for that. TRT changed her husband's life. And I'm not always promoting TRT. No, it's not made up. I'll kick you off if you're going to say stupid stuff like that. I'm trying to deal with you. This is all stuff, and I'll post on it later this week. You can even follow me. I'll let you. I don't push TRT too quickly. It is good, but of all the people I know on TRT, the only muscular guys, they were muscular before TRT. And the other guys that are on TRT, and you would never guess it, it's because they were out of shape and 40 pounds overweight and all this other stuff, and they started taking TRT without doing the other stuff I was talking about, like looking up Anthony J. and Andrew Huberman, these guys. Get the processed food out, get the plastic out, lift heavy weights, sleep right. Sleep's very important. Huberman has a lot on sleep. So do that for the men. If you're considering TRT, I'm not against it. I'm saying fix the other stuff first, and you'll get much more out of TRT. Can you do a live green screen on this? You mean like with the Angel? You mean like with the information in the back, the article stuff? I've never done a green screen, but I guess I could. What type of... Don't do any plastic. Don't do any plastic. I just see what type of plastics. All plastic's bad. When you see a plastic container and it says BPA free, Anthony J gets into this. That A on the BPA, that's called an analog. They have a whole list of different analogs. They do. So they'll take the BPA out and they'll put another BP analog in there, and it's still crap. Just as much as possible, glass and plastic, or glass and stainless steel. Don't even drink water bottles. It's right. Now, the big thing with plastic is it does become more important if it's been heated up. So I buy raw milk from a local farmer, and they put it in plastic bags. That's my only option. I would still rather not do that, but I'm not too worried about it because that plastic never gets heated up. They do the thing where they seal it, but it's not, I mean, it's still cold. So I'm not going to worry about that too much. I'd still prefer the glass, but they don't offer anymore. To the point, and Anthony J talks a lot about this, avoid as much plastic as possible, but just accept the fact that unless you live in a cave somewhere in the Himalayas, it's going to be impossible to avoid all of it. But whenever possible, glass and stainless steel. He changed his diet and dropped 50 pounds and couldn't naturally produce his... Yeah, see, and that's good. He's doing the work besides just the TRT. That's good. Yes, CACOS, we can agree on things. Microplastics are in everything nowadays. It's a plague. How or where can you get non-plastic encased water? I have a Berkey filter, and up to a couple years ago, I lived on 40 acres with a well. If you can do that, and I'm planning on getting back to the country and just getting on a well and just put my water straight into stainless steel or glass. Don't pick on ACOS. He's welcome here. I put my husband's food in plastic. What do you recommend? Glass. Yes. Especially if he's heating it up. Do not heat up plastic. That's where it gets really bad. Your well is where it's at. what I used to use. Filtering water removes minerals to make sure you add those back. I don't worry so much about minerals, to be honest. If you eat I eat 95% of my food from same local farmer, raw milk, grass-finished beef, pastured pork, eggs right off the farm, run around in the dirt and get dirty, and the Berkey water filter. If you're on municipal water, I think it's pretty good. Well water is the best. If you can do that. You guys are going to pick on ACOS anyway. All right. So you think by all those plastic bottles, it's doing something. Oh, yeah. Lady V. So you think all those plastic bottles, it's doing something to my estrogen too? Yes. Women can also be what they call estrogen dominant. And it causes a lot of problems. And most people that are researching this, they've noted that young girls are hitting puberty way too early. There's 10-year-old girls out there with boobs, and that shouldn't be happening. I know it happens 50 years ago every once in a while, but not the rate it's happening now, because it's too many women are am I saying that right? Estrogen dominant. And Danny Denise, quit burning candles. Hey, did you guys know lavender is estrogenic? I've seen, yeah, and that's provable. That's not a theory. Lavender is estrogenic. If you're a man and your wife likes burning or lavender oil, whatever, get that shit out of the house. Get some trace minerals concentrated. Do yourself a favor. It's not enough. Yeah, I'm not against putting minerals in your, replacement. I'm just saying I don't because the way I eat, I'm good. That's the roids in our food. If you guys have any local food sources, find a farm. Support local farms. That should be a mantra. If I was into tattoos, I'd get it tattooed on my butt. Filter water, remove that. So, all right, I'm going to get off here because we're going over. Do you like death grips? Okay, I know what that means. So, are you Jack from the Titanic? Are you Jack from accounting? It matters. Because it matters to her. That's why it matters to you. That's the takeaway. Hypergamy is a real natural thing. If you are not Jack from the Titanic, just because she will love bomb you and be a nice platonic roommate, and will have obligation sex with you a few times a month, that's not an optimal life. And any man can do better. I don't remember who asked it, but can all men be that Jack from the Titanic? Yes. He just has to stay within his range. If you're 5'6" and you don't think you're handsome, you can go to the gym, you can eat right, you can get your finances on point, and you can find a woman that's right there with you, and you can be her Jack from the Titanic. But what you don't ever do is be anybody's Jack from accounting, because let's say it like this: it matters to you. This is going to be a mantra of mine, I can tell. It matters to you men because it does matter to her, and because she's willing to settle for the sake of security. That shouldn't affect you. God bless her and the things that she needs to do, but you have your own life to take care of, and you don't want to wake up 5-10 years and realize that you're living in the shadow of something in her memory. That's not a good way to go. So, all right, guys, I'm going to get out of here. 80 people on the way out. I appreciate everything. If you don't follow, please give me a follow. I'm going to be focusing a little more on TikTok now. They're not. I used to be on a pretty hard shadow ban, and it's still not as good as it used to be, but it's getting better. So we will be doing some more lives here on TikTok and maybe on Instagram as well. Maybe I'll do 2 a week. So thank you, everybody. I see Mickey and everybody and Scotty. I'm out.